This is Rat Pack Radio, the internet radio station that brings you everything from the top hits of music.
Hey guys, this is Bruno Mars.
To Sports Talk Radio.
With the first pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Rams select Jared Goff, quarterback from California.
We are here for you, WRPR Rat Pack Radio. Come join the pack.
You're listening to WRPR Rat Pack Radio. Come join the pack. You're listening to Rat Pack Sports Show on WRPR Rat Pack Radio.
Blue, you're my boy! A genius. A man who has a reputation to be the best at what he does.
You see, a man has to realize his limitations. You don't know me, and you don't know what I'm capable of.
That was a heck of an effort.
This house is a prison, and the galaxy of this sucks.
You free enough.
Life is over when I say it is over. I will massacre you.
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40.
Are you not entertained?
I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
That's how I roll. Offensive!
Hello? You play to win the game.
There's a drive! Way back! It could be!
This is my favorite part coming up right now.
Watch your tongue or have it cut from your head.
All right. Rat Pack Sports Show. We are back. We are live. Rat Pack Radio, WRPR. Streaming online, ratpacksports.com. And also the Rat Pack Radio, WRPR app. We're in the building for another week, bringing you the best ads in sports talk and entertainment for your ears. We are here streaming live on Rat Pack Sports. It is Wednesday night. It is the NBA playoffs. It's Major League season. We have, NFL news to talk about. Mini camps going on. We also have Nicholas Lane, who will be joining us here very shortly. He is coming on to steal the show a little bit early, because my man has a little bit of softball to do. So we're going to get him on here, and he's going to grace us with his presence. So I am just, let me see, he's trying to call in now. I don't know why he's getting a busy signal, but let's see what's going on. Maybe this is why. So, let's see here. Let's see if we can get him back. Oh, there he is. Look at that. Look at that. All right, so let's get him on. We're gonna get him on in here early tonight. We're getting a little bit early start on the NBA segment. We got him right now with us, Rat Pack Sports Show NBA insider, Mr. Nicholas Lane. What's going on, brother?
Today is an exciting day because we get to, Doc Rivers gets fired. Ime Udoka gets hired. We have the conference finals. The Spurs won the draft lottery. But Derek, you know what time it is? And you also know that this is way more important than all of that. What time is it, Derek?
It is time for the Anthony Bennett All Stars of 2023.
Selection show!
Yes, the selection show.
It's like Christmas to talk about the 5 worst players in the NBA.
Yep.
It's a wonderful time, Derek.
Yes, it is. It is a wonderful time, and to kick things off with this is the GOAT of all selection shows. I just want to put that out there for anybody who may doubt what we're doing. So we're gonna get this thing started, and hold on real quick. Hold on. We gotta get our theme music here before we start making our selections. All right.
It's like the anticipation when you're coming out for the title match on a pay-per-view.
Yes.
We're ready for it.
We don't have a 20-minute loop for this, so we'll just bring it in. We just bring it in when my man Nicholas start, going into detail. And ladies and gentlemen, the Anthony Bennett All Star selection will be on the Rat Pack Sports website for you guys. You want to go back and view that for your pleasure, and show your buddies the hard work that my man Nicholas Lane puts in to this list. This is not before we get going, let's make it understandable to everybody that's might be new to all this, that this is not a how should we explain this? Because some of these guys are still playing for teams. Some of them may be contributors to the rotation or whatnot, but this is strictly based off of contract. Based on your contract and the production that you've given, this is what we think about you. So
think of it as Indiana Jones searching for an artifact.
Yeah.
And my artifact is to find the 5 worst players in the NBA based on their contract and performance, as you specifically described. Now, you're going to tell me, Nick, why aren't you saying Matthew Dellavedova? He never plays. He never does anything. And believe me, I went to a Kings game at the end of the year in Portland, and I saw Matthew Dellavedova in the huddle, running up to half court, doing little mini suicide lines. I mean, I get it. He's completely worthless in the NBA anymore. I understand if you tell me that Matthew Dellavedova should be on this list. Matthew Dellavedova makes a minimum contract, so it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. Like Russell Westbrook, you can tell me he made, $40+ million in Lakers. But yeah, you know what? He played every night. He at least was good enough to not be awful. Gordon Hayward, yeah, he had pretty good stretches during the year, even though his contract is terrible as well. He was on the list last year.
Yep.
Eric Gordon, back-to-back years he was on the list. This year, he gets traded in the middle of the season, and he actually was productive for the Clippers, who I said many times on the Anthony Bennett All Stars back-to-back years that he deserved to be on there because he was also on the worst team in the NBA, and they didn't need him. But they still never traded him, And as I highlighted in last year's article, that how the Rockets still didn't move him in that three-way Harden deal is absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I don't go search for those players because, Westbrook also got bought out in the middle of the season. They became like more of a minimum salary dude at the end of the year. And of course, he was really good for the Clippers at the end of the season. So, no, I'm sorry. Whoever listening fan thinks that Russell Westbrook should be on the list, he's not. I have found 5 far more worse players than him.
All right. So with that being said, let's get into it. Let's get into those 5 players who's going to make up the list of this year's Anthony Bennett All Stars. And ladies and gentlemen, when you go read the article, we got a couple of, entertaining videos for you to check out while you're reading the article. We throw these little side bits in, every year that we do it. And this year, we got a special debut on this one.
Every year, I always put in the John Tesh video because it's just so awesome. It is the NBA on NBC song. He's always my mascot when it comes to this award show.
Yep.
But the new Ja Morant video surfacing with the gun in his hand, it's just too much for me. I have to put it on blast. I have to put it out there because I'm watching you, Ja Morant, next year. If you get suspended for the entire season, you're on notice.
Yeah, he is. And we'll, if we got time, I know you're crunched with the softball, so if we got time after you debut the list, we'll definitely get into that story because, that's all I'm going to say to that right now.
We're going to kick it off at number 5, and we're going to go with Joe Harris on the Brooklyn Nets. Now we talk about Joe Harris, and when he was good, that's when they had Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie. Joe Harris, way back before Brooklyn actually had some kind of a future. They came out of that KG Paul Pierce trade, and all 4 of these guys showed a lot of life. They were later first-round picks because the Nets didn't really have many picks, or they were second-round guys or undrafted guys, like a Spencer Dinwiddie, I believe, was more of a late second-rounder. And I don't think Joe Harris was a first-rounder. And they were good together. They were playing free. They played like obviously no one cared if they were on the floor, or also that they didn't have to worry about their minutes. Then all of a sudden, of course, Brooklyn wants to blow everything up. They want to put in Kyrie, Durant, trade for Harden, and everything turned out to be a flaming disaster. And now, so is Joe Harris. And somehow, some way, Joe Harris convinced the Nets, or his agent convinced the Nets, that after a season where he was the most accurate shooter in the league, that he should get a long-term contract in the $17+ million range. And now Joe Harris barely plays 20 minutes, even on a team that has our number 1 Anthony Bennett All Star selection. Joe Harris is one of those guys that just shoots threes. He doesn't play defense like he used to back in those former Brooklyn days when he was he was a younger player. He doesn't rebound. He doesn't pass. He doesn't dribble. He's not a dribble handoff guy, and that's going to be a theme with the first 4 guys on this list. And to me, Joe Harris is the number 5 worst player in the league, 5th most useless player in the league, mainly because the only thing he can do is shoot. And I see that as completely useless.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep my comments short because I want to get through these. But I forgot about that guy. He was pretty good in Brooklyn, and what Nicholas does is he brings you guys that you really kind of haven't heard of in a while. When you wonder, hey, I forgot that. I forgot about that guy. I thought he wasn't even in the league anymore. That's homework, folks. That's homework. All right.
He was starting with Durant out there, and now he's buried on the bench. He barely plays. And this Brooklyn team is really bad outside of Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. There's not much there. So now, I just looked it up. Joe Harris is $18.6 million for a player that a team like, and you'll see the theme here, like a team like OKC signed Lindy Waters to like 2 or 3 years, maybe $1 million a season. And Lindy Waters is just as good of a shooter as Joe Harris is. And to me, that's where I think a lot of my point lies when it comes to guys on this list, that they're just, it's just unbelievable how much they get paid compared to, there's a lot of hungry G Leaguers, undrafted players that can carve out a great rotation spot, being a useful player by being a shooter at minimum deals, $1 million a year. Like there's too many of them out there, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. There's a lot of wasted money in the league today.
Number 4 on our favorite team on the Rat Pack Sports Show, those New York Knickerbockers, Evan Fournier. Now, Derek, you're very familiar with Evan Fournier as he was on the Magic with Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, Fournier himself. When the Magic blew everything up, when they traded him to Boston, you're like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. You got a couple seconds and like a small player maybe from Boston at best for Fournier. Because even when Fournier was a playoff starter in the bubble, like you're just kind of like, I guess he's all right as a shooting guard. Like he can score maybe 12 to 14 points on a pretty good night, and he gives you some defensive abilities in those Orlando days. And now it's pretty pathetic. Like he started the season actually playing, and then he was so bad that even the maniac ramrod coach of Tom Thibodeau actually realized that he's so bad that we're not going to play him at all. The other reason why he's on this list is when he got signed by the Knicks in free agency after his year in Boston, where he was about as good as he was in Orlando. When these agents negotiate deals, these GMs have to also kind of do their homework too. Of when I look at Evan Fournier, I look at about as middle of the road production as you can get. And when you give him a 4-year, $78 million contract,
it's a lot of money.
You can go like, okay, maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense. But then you dive into it a little bit more, because normally you would say, oh, well, maybe his last year was like $5 million, or they front-loaded the deal, or it's non-guaranteed the last year. Well, somehow, I don't know what got flipped in the Knicks' drink that morning in order for them to sign the contract with Fournier, but they gave him 4 years fully guaranteed.
Dang.
So there was a reason why he was just sitting on the bench, even in the playoffs. He wasn't even dressing or barely dressing. And to me, it's inexcusable for a middle-of-the-road guy that once he falls off a cliff, which he already has, he's not an NBA player anymore. He can be in France for the rest of his career where he came from. And for the Knicks to have that thin margin of a player that's still relevant compared to a player that's obviously not relevant. They also have another guy on that roster, and Derek, you might need to shed a tear for this, right? But it's Derrick Rose. So to me, the Evan Fournier thing is a completely useless contract He has done nothing for New York. He's done nothing while he's been in New York. And they still got another 2 years to eat that deal out.
Yeah, and that's a lot of money for a guy who you're not using. I mean, we know how Ramrod likes to play basketball. We know that. And he doesn't fit a Ramrod type of player. He just doesn't. I don't even know why this. What was it? A trade? Was he traded to the Knicks, or was it a free agent signing?
Complete free agent signing.
So yeah, I don't know what they was thinking on that. I mean, yeah, he could, in the beginning of the season, he was giving them some offense and stuff like that, but that's all he's gonna give you. We know Ramrod is a hard-nosed, tough, defense, physical type of coach, and that's just not the type of player that he is. So somebody blew that one.
Well, especially when you see them they traded for Josh Hart at the deadline.
Yep.
They gave a lot of those minutes out of Fournier to Quentin Grimes, a second-year player that is hungry for those minutes. So he is going to play defense plus still give enough offense for being a young guy who's actually doing pretty well for New York. So now you got a Joakim Noah situation where you might as well just send him home and just not even play him. It's pretty inexcusable. I don't know if you can even move that contract. I mean, you can maybe move that contract for another Anthony Bennett All Star, our next one. But again, he's just as useless as well too. So I think the Knicks are just stuck with him until it's over with.
Yeah. And so sometimes, it gets to that point where the contract is so bad that you can't get rid of it, and you just stuck with that guy, rotten, just chilling, sitting on your bench. Or even when you cut him, you're still going to be responsible, for that contract, because in the NBA these contracts are, they're guaranteed deals. So once they sign them, you got to pay out.
Well, our third selection, and in true Anthony Bennett form, he is a back-to-back All-Star selection on this show. His name is Davis Bertans. Davis Bertans is a 6'10" power forward that plays for the Dallas Mavericks. I don't know how he was in the Kristaps Porzingis trade, but he was. And for him to be somehow involved in that trade has to be probably one of the highlights of his career, because otherwise there's not much going on here. I mean, he got this contract from Washington. Washington makes Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, only to be shellacked in Game 7 by the one and only Kelly Olynyk for Boston, who just dominated the Wizards in that Game 7. But Davis Bertans became the sharpshooter. He was out there on the floor in crunch time. I don't know how, but he was. And now he's a dude that is 6'10", maybe grabs 2 rebounds a game at most. He can't play post defense. He can't pass. He can only shoot. He doesn't play any perimeter defense, and he is a softest, charming defensive player. He doesn't do anything. He can't defend. He can't dribble. He can't pass. He can't probably walk one leg in front of the other very well either too. So to me, Davis Bertans is just as useless. He's another $17.5 million player. Still has one more full year left on his deal. I saw before the draft lottery that Bobby Marks on Twitter put each team's outlook for their coming season, and they put him in as a tradable contract, which is true. It is a tradable contract as long as you have to give away an asset to get off of him. Yes, it is a tradable contract because, Derek, if you're 6'10", even if you're 240 pounds, you should be able to grab more than 2 rebounds a game. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I would think. I'm 6'4". I think right now I could probably figure out a way to grab 2 rebounds. I mean, it's not hard. It's not hard at all.
They call him the Latvian laser, and it's just another player in the league that once his contract is up, and it has been the tale as old as time, as my 6th Anthony Bennett All Star list that this one is. I put Timofey Mozgov on there for a couple of years, and you know what? He wasn't in the league after after his contract ran out. And I guarantee you, Davis Bertans will not be in the league anymore after his contract runs out, unless he is a minimum salary player. Then, okay, fine. He might get 1 or 2 years to convince a team that you can somehow play 10 minutes a night if you're lucky. That's about it. He gives nothing in production. He gives nothing in team value for you. And he gives nothing, I believe, as a teammate. He's not this loud vocal dude. He's just a soft 6'10" guy that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he's had some moments. Like you said, he's had some moments, but just not enough. And to get paid what he gets paid, you gotta do better. That's why you're on the list. That's why you're on the list.
He's hovering to that 3-time Anthony Bennett, and that's the pantheon of where Chandler Parsons is. So he's close. Eric Gordon was on 2 years in a row, and he got off the list. Davis Bertans now is 2 years in a row, and man, it's not looking good. It's looking like him and Chandler. I might need to put him and Chandler Parsons in a picture in this article pretty soon because it's getting real close for that.
Hey, gotta at some point somebody has to break that historical streak. So we get a 3-timer, possibly a 4-timer.
Oh man, a 4-timer would be pretty epic. That would be the full length of the deal because if you're not re-signing with your team as a supermax on a 5-year deal, if you go to free agency for the 4-year deal, then yeah, you would get all 4 years if you got on the list if you were that bad. At least Evan Fournier in his first year was actually productive. He was still pretty decent, but that's before they had Jalen Brunson. That's before they had, they gave Quentin Grimes all these minutes. So there's obviously things that have changed for Fournier, of course, in New York. Number 4, and he is actually playing minutes in the playoffs in the now Eastern Conference Finals for the Miami Heat. His name is Duncan Robinson. And Duncan Robinson, if it wasn't for Tyler Hero breaking his hand in Game 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, Duncan Robinson wouldn't be playing any meaningful minutes in the playoffs. But him and Max Strus are doing that. Now, to me, this is the quintessential example of why Duncan Robinson is on this list. Outside of, yes, he can shoot, and he's just as good of a shooter as anyone in the league. I will give him that. He totally is. But if you ask him to do anything else, he can't do it. Again, can't pass, can't dribble, can't rebound, doesn't defend very well. That's why he lost all of his minutes in the regular season because he can't defend. He can't defend William on a pickup game. I think the equivalent of how I would describe Duncan Robinson's NBA defensive ability. But when you got a guy on your roster and his name is Max Strus, and he maybe makes, I'm just taking a guess, he probably makes under $4 million this year. You got Duncan Robinson at like 18 plus. They have the same strengths, but at least Max Strus is on the floor a lot more because he actually tries on defense. Now, Max Strus is not known as a defender because he's not, but he tries. He does strip the ball. He does grab the rebound. He is a good shooter. He's not a great shooter like I think Duncan Robinson is. But again, the $14 million, or more gap between what they make is why I believe Duncan Robinson is on this list.
Again, a lot of money for very little to no production, and there's a lot of guys in this league that are in this same position, but this is a special list again. So, yeah, and it was at one point, like you said, that guy was getting major minutes. He was heavy in the rotation, and he was knocking down some shots. That's one thing he can do is shoot the ball, and you're not going wrong if you put him in to make shots. You're not going wrong, but you can find that in a lot more players that you're not paying out a fraction of that amount of money.
I look at it like this, back in the 90s, like I was a big Sonics fan, and they had Sam Perkins and Detlef Schrempf, of course, Peyton Kemp, and they were, the number 1 or number 2 seed most years going into the playoffs. But they had a guy, his name was Chuck Person.
Yep.
And Chuck Person was the three-point shooter for their team before Dale Ellis was, of course, before him. But Chuck Person, the rifleman, was their three-point shooter. I wonder if he even got paid $300,000 that year. I mean, it's a mystery if that even happened. But I'll tell you, I know today's NBA and the athletes, and I get it. Everything is a lot different. And Duncan Robinson's story to go from an undrafted player on the Heat to getting the most money ever for an undrafted player is a pretty remarkable feat. But when you only do one thing so well and you don't do anything else great, and then the reason why that you're supposed to be on the floor lacks because you can't do everything else, but yet you're getting paid like a borderline star type player, that's why you end up here. That's why we're talking about you,
Yep. Hey, no holds barred, baby. You make this list. You did something special.
Okay, well, we'll go to number 1, and this is going to be a pretty easy explanation of why he's number 1, but it comes with a little bit of a story. We've seen John Wall on this list, and we've seen Gordon Hayward on this list before. All-stars in the past, really bad in the present, especially John Wall. His Houston situation was just really strange from that Westbrook for John Wall swap. Everything was pretty weird with that situation with John Wall being on the, obviously on the worst team in the league and making the amount of money that he was. And so it's not John Wall's fault. Yeah, it's a Supermax contract fault. If you really want to fault it, go ahead. But there is a guy who's been a multiple-time All-Star, who's been all defensive NBA player too. But now he is the number 1 worst player in the NBA, in my opinion, humbly. Ben Simmons.
This is a debut right here for you. I'm gonna let you explain. Then I'll put in my 2 cents.
Well, he's in Philly, and his contract situation, or there was something going on between him and Embiid, or the fans didn't like him because that whole when the Hawks beat the Sixers, when the Hawks made the Eastern Conference Finals a couple of years, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And Ben Simmons was blamed for everything. doesn't take accountability for it, and doesn't want to go to practice, doesn't want to interact with his teammates, and just cries and moans about wanting to be traded. Makes up every excuse. Then you see him working out in videos through Clutch. It was just a disaster to watch the whole situation. And Philly had to give Brooklyn multiple firsts just for the amount of talent difference between Harden and Ben Simmons. And we see Ben Simmons, there was only a small glimpses that Ben Simmons was actually pretty decent around Durant towards the beginning of the year. And then it just all fell apart. He has these weird back injuries that no one is explaining. No one's telling us an update of the status of this. He can't shoot. He can't shoot a free throw. He can't shoot a 6-footer in the lane. He can't shoot a hook shot. He can only lay up the basketball while driving to the rim. That's the only thing he can do besides, passing. He's really good at passing. But, again, if you're only good at one thing and everything else, that why you're drafted number 1 overall as a 6'7" point guard and this uber aggressive player getting to the rim like he was in Philly before everything started breaking down for him, we see him now and he doesn't drive to the lane. He can't shoot. He can't shoot a free throw, as I just explained. His defensive ability is not as elite as it was in Philly either. So what do you do? And then, on top of that, you're getting paid $34.5 million?
That's a lot of money.
That's the difference of him, again, a Davis Bertans, a Timofey Mozgov. At the end of your contract, you're out of the league. Unless you take a lot less money on one-year deals and a team will just be like, you know what, fine, we'll try it out. Like how Detroit traded for James Wiseman. And if Detroit gives James Wiseman a second contract worth, even over $10 million a year, it will just be just a head scratcher. James Wiseman is just really bad, just like Marvin Bagley is. But so far, right now, they don't make enough money to be mentioned. But Ben Simmons does. And his fall from grace is pretty hard. And the reality check that I think he's going to get in this league, in a shooter's league, when you can't even shoot a 6-footer, is a huge problem. I like to say this on the show instead of saying, any kind of curse words or anything about, to describe a player. I just say it's a big problem. And for Ben Simmons to stay in the NBA after this large contract and somehow Brooklyn just has to deal with it is going to be pretty amazing if he can ever improve anywhere. Markelle Fultz, when he was in Philly, drafted number 1 overall as well, he had a lot of mental issues or a lot of, kind of scared issues, about his free throw shooting especially. And Philly obviously rags on you pretty hard if you don't perform. But we see Markelle Fultz in Orlando, and he's terrific. He's a starting point guard in the NBA. Ben Simmons didn't even play in the playoffs for Brooklyn. Obviously, they got swept because they're bad, but he didn't even play. They don't know when he's going to play. And as long as he makes all that money and he doesn't play or he's just as bad, we're going to keep talking about him because he's on notice. He's on my radar. He's there. And Simmons is really bad.
Yeah. This one here is a very special one because I've been very vocal. We've been very vocal over the last few years about the, just the whole Ben Simmons situation. Being how quiet, both of the organizations was about it. How he didn't necessarily hold himself accountable. It wasn't his fault. He couldn't hit a jump shot. Everybody else's fault. The injuries, being hushed on the injury situation, just everything in general, and all of these red flags, showed up after he got into the league. He came into the league. We knew he wasn't a shooter. He wasn't a shooter. In college, he did basically the same player, but nobody realized how, bad it would get for him as a professional. Now it's just a joke. This dude has figured out a way how to be an NBA player and make a lot of money and not play, not practice, not do nothing. And I think either this season or last season, he his excuse was he was dealing with some mental health issues. Listen, I'll be the first one to say mental health is a serious issue in this world. But I don't have a soft spot for situations where I feel like people are using it as an advantage to just, to get out of doing something or not wanting to do something, or it's an excuse because you're just using it as an excuse. We live in the world, especially in the sports world. There's always pressure. You either win or you lose. There's no in between. You either win or you lose. You compete. So if you can't deal with the grind of sports, the expectations, the letdowns, the losing, the winning, everything that comes with it, get out.
Because you're getting paid $34.5 million to deal with it.
Exactly. So Ben Simmons being number one on this list, very, very well deserving. Very well deserving. Because I think his situation to me is it is a mystery because nobody knows anything, but the man still is money. He's stealing money. Period.
Not even the team doesn't know when he's coming back.
Yeah.
When he's actually able to play. He's telling Jacques Vaughn, I can't play. And, I mean, that's fine if you're hurt. I get it. And if your back really is screwed up, it's understandable. But when you're the highest paid player on the team on a potentially losing team next season, probably a losing team next season, you've got to set an example. And Ben Simmons is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I know coming into the draft when he was drafted number one, that there was a lot of, his negative is his attitude, his work ethic. He didn't play a lot of games. He didn't, they didn't play him towards the end of the year. He's only good at these certain things. And we're seeing that really come to fruition compared to, when we see negative things about a player and then 3 years later we don't even talk about it because it's changed so much of his narrative. But Ben Simmons did in the beginning. He was very good. He was Rookie of the Year after his first year he didn't play. He's been an All NBA defensive player. He's been a 2-time All-Star. But, he is at the lowest point in his career, and I don't know if he can get out of it.
No, I think he's put himself in a situation where I'm not even going to say accepted because I believe what he's doing is strategic. Just so he doesn't play, but he continues to get paid. If anybody else has come say, "Oh, well, I'm not playing," or "Well, now I'm injured." Well, when did you get injured? Because the team never reported you being injured. You never left the game or practice due to an injury. So how you just show up one day out of nowhere, and you just tell the team you're injured, something's wrong with your back, and you're not playing. That's crazy. That is crazy. That is crazy.
And he's doing a masterful job at it with your theory. And the opposite, I think, is going to apply for Spurs winning the lottery last night.
Yep.
For the Wembanyama sweepstakes. And you could tell when this prospect is this exciting, when this guy, the representative of the Spurs was hooting and hollering and pumping some fists out there, that this player is that special. And when they kept saying, he could be the best player in the NBA in 3 years, that he is the best prospect. I mean, I've been saying this for a while, but what I would say about Wembanyama is he's going to go to the best situation, because if he went to Houston, it would be a complete disaster.
Train wreck.
If he went to Detroit, it would be an even worse situation for him. But he went to the best situation, not just for Popovich, maybe in his last year coaching, maybe, but for an organization who actually does run things pretty well. And they do have some pretty good talent that obviously is developing, but this is going to really catapult, this is going to kickstart them. I don't think they're going to be tanking next year. They got a good young point guard who is a free agent, who is Trey Jones. I believe they're going to re-sign Trey Jones. And if you're in fantasy basketball and you're in a category league, Trey Jones will rack up the assists pretty hard by passing to this dude. To me, when you're 7'4" and you're hitting one-legged three-pointers, when a guy maybe has his hand at like your chin, that's about it. How it's like you playing that hot shot game at like an arcade versus a kid, and you're Victor Wembanyama. Like, he's just flicking his wrist and hitting threes, one-legged. He is missing a three, running to the ball and dunking the follow-up. Now, he might not be able to do that night and night on the league, but he will do it a few times. And I tell you, I have never seen a prospect like this kid, not even like a LeBron James. I've never seen a prospect like this kid. And he can handle the ball. He can pass. And obviously, he can help defend better than almost anybody in the NBA. Even as a rookie, he will be. And maybe not as an individual post defender. I understand he's frail. He needs time to develop. He's going to get that in San Antonio, and he's not going to be in the spotlight of a New York City or a Los Angeles or Chicago. He's not going to be or even in Miami. He's not going to be in the spotlight. He's going to be in San Antonio, and it couldn't be the best situation for him. And I think this is going to make the Spurs so much better, even year one of his of when after he gets drafted.
Yeah, and I've been paying a little bit of attention to this kid since you've been talking about him here in the last few months, and watching some highlights and things. The kid is tiny, man. If there's one negative, obviously you'll grow into your body, you'll gain some adult weight, you'll add muscle. Giannis was a small guy when he came into the league as well. He's filled in, but he's tiny, man. And if you're gonna be dominant in this league, whether you're a shooter or an in-betweener type of player, you're gonna need some size on that body because he is very tiny. But from a talent standpoint, skill set standpoint, he is probably more of a Giannis with a more deadlier shot. And maybe a tad bit better of a ball handler. But he will be good. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take before he, settle in. He kind of looks almost like a, Chet Holmgren type of from a body standpoint.
Yes. Yeah, and he does have elements that are just better, I think, than Chet Holmgren, even though they're very similar prospects. I believe that Wembanyama is better. He's a better passer. He's a better shooter. And he is a better shot blocker than Chet Holmgren. But it doesn't mean that Chet Holmgren can't be as good down the road. That's the element of surprise because you don't know still what Chet's going to give you because he hasn't played yet. But to me, I think Wembanyama does have the ability to be, like you said, more of a Giannis type, better ball handler. But I think he could be the shooter of a Porzingis. Porzingis in New York was a pretty red-hot shooter. This season in Washington, Porzingis played a terrific season for Washington. Honestly, he was really good. And I think Wembanyama can be that guy. I think he can do everything on the floor. And at 7'4", to say that with a 7'6", 7'8" wingspan, it's pretty insane to even talk about that. When guys that are 6'7", 6'8", but they have a 7-foot wingspan, they get pretty highly talented in the draft because that's pretty abnormal to have that long of arms. When you're talking about 7'6", 7'8" wingspan, you're talking about blocking shots that you're not ever supposed to block, and he's gonna do it. I believe that this will probably put the Spurs in like a play-in type of scenario because they have other players that are good. Jeremy Sohan played a pretty good rookie season. Devin Vassell, I believe, can be a good scorer. Keldon Johnson is a really good athletic player that I think can still score you 18 to 20 points a game. And Trey Jones is actually a really good passer. I think he's a pretty good point guard, a lower-end value point guard, but I think he is a starting point guard in the NBA. He is pretty good. So I believe this Spurs team will surprise some people even in year one of having Wembanyama.
Yeah, and time will tell as far as how fast he develops and how effective he is early on in his career. But it will, San Antonio is probably ecstatic. They've had a history of bringing in European players and those guys being very good or develop into very good ball players. So,
well, especially from France, as Tony Parker and Boris Diaw were terrific players for them in their years, and of course Manu Ginobili. But Tim Duncan is an assistant coach off the bench for San Antonio, and what better way for Tim Duncan to guide Wembanyama through his career here and be an extension of maybe a Popovich or the Spurs way is to have the best Spurs player of all time be right there on the bench with you. I think that's also going to play into effect of what kind of a player we're going to see Wembanyama become.
Yeah. Yes.
The second pick was Charlotte, and I would have loved to see Charlotte get number one to put Wembanyama and LaMelo Ball together. One spot away. We're so close. But the number 2 prospect in this draft, it was Scoot Henderson. But since I believe Charlotte has Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball, they don't need a Scoot Henderson as well, who is just like a De'Aaron Fox, a Russell Westbrook, a John Wall type point guard, maybe even a Derrick Rose. When obviously Derrick Rose came into the league. he is that kind of a prospect. But Brandon Miller out of Alabama, the kid who had some off-the-court issues in January, that it sounds like to me that GMs are not really that worried about it. Everything got kind of cleared. He was very cooperative during that investigation. So you don't really hear much about that situation that happened in January with Brandon Miller. But we see the prototypical wing forward that can shoot really, really well, that will be able to defend. And even though he's only 210 pounds or so at 6'7", 220 or so, he will, as you talked about with Wembanyama, he will grow into his body. And actually, Charlotte needs a small forward really bad because they have a guy, Gordon Hayward, that was so close to making the Anthony Bennett All Stars, barely left off the list. But you know, if that's your starting small forward, I think you need to have a better one. And he's going to slot in right away and become, I think, a pretty good player in the league. I think he's a better Otto Porter Jr. is kind of where I see him to be. And, you know, Otto Porter did last quite a while in the league. You know, he's obviously not really playing anymore, but I think he has that better than Trevor Ariza career arc, but he has the similar game of a Trevor Ariza, but much better compared to where an Ariza was in the league. And for Charlotte to get, this is not just grabbing the best available talented player. This is a need pick. And I think Charlotte is going to be picking Brandon Miller immediately, because if they don't, they are the craziest organization in the league, and that's saying a lot. But I would say Brandon Miller is going to go number 2 to the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, I'm not Miller. I haven't seen a whole lot, you know, on Miller, so I don't have much to say about him. You would know more than me, obviously, because you don't miss a beat, and you get all these guys names correct, no matter how they spelled. So,
and this is a 3-player draft, you know, of elite prospects that are really good. I mean, yeah, you're going to eventually go down the line. You're going to find like a Jalen Williams, like the Thunder did last season. You're going to find a Keegan Murray. I mean, there is, you know, last year's class was much deeper. It was a really good class. Number 3 is Scoot Henderson. Portland got the 3rd pick, which again, I think if Portland got number 1, Damian Lillard would have immediately stopped all trade talks, and he would have just said, give me that guy. I don't want Yusuf Nurkic. Give me that guy. And that's who I want. And since they don't, now they're stuck in a really weird position. And these Damian Lillard trade talks, I think, are very real. And he could go to New York. He could go to Dallas. There's so many. I think there's a lot of. He could go to Miami. I think there's a lot of destinations where he could go. And Portland already gave Anthony Simons a contract extension. They already have Damian Lillard. Scoot Henderson is a point guard. He's like maybe 6'1" at best. But the dude is this lightning rod of athleticism, shooting, explosiveness, all of it combined into one. He's a De'Aaron Fox. He is a John Wall with the ball. When John Wall was in Washington, he is a Russell Westbrook with the ball. Just an aggressive, downhill, run down to the rim player that has this Derrick Rose finishing ability of athleticism on top of all of that. So when you hear all that, Derek, and you already have Damian Lillard, and you already gave 5 years, $100 million to Anthony Simons, if you're the Blazers, what do you do?
That's a tough position to be in. You might not be able to do anything, but you just mean, work your way around the cap situation. Well, not the cap, but the luxury. The luxury tax situation, and I know they say if a team wants you, they'll all find a way to do it. But man, you can't keep playing. You can't keep blowing contracts like that. That doesn't help. Stabilize the franchise. So.
Well, I mean, if you're Portland, you could look at it like this.
I mean, you're trying to do some things to hold on to, Lillard. So.
Well, you can go two different routes here. You can have Scoot Henderson. You can have Simon come off the bench, or you can have Scoot Henderson come off the bench, and you can still keep Simons and Lillard together. Or you can trade Lillard and send him to like a Miami, or to send him to like a Dallas for some contract fillers, plus maybe like a good talented player like a Josh Green that's on Dallas. And you can start over with the Simons and Scoot Henderson backcourt. Because if you traded him to Miami, you could possibly get a Tyler Hero in that deal. So then you could have, a Tyler Hero, Scoot Henderson, and Simons. That's a really good starting point. You can move Yusuf Nurkic. You can go find, different younger centers. Go call up Detroit. Go take a chance on a Wiseman or a Bagley if you wanted to. I mean, there's ways to get big men at cheap prices.
Yeah.
So I think Portland has multiple different ways to figure out what they're going to do. And we're going to see that unfold, either them drafting the third pick or trading it, maybe like a Pascal Siakam, maybe to Toronto. I think there's a lot of ways that you can make this work. And Portland, to me, is not usually the best ran organization when it comes to figuring out moving talent or moving pieces to get talent, because they still got to sign Jeremy Grant. I think if they do sign Jeremy Grant, but I don't always have the best confidence in the team like Portland to make the best decision, because they haven't shown the ability to do that in quite a while. So
yeah.
I think if Lillard really wants to be traded and you're staring at another point guard can be a multiple-time All-Star selection type player in the future, then maybe you cut ties with Lillard while you do it right for him. And that could be something we might see.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. I like Lillard. He's one of those players that he plays, he goes hard for his team. He plays for his coach. He's not, one of these superstar players that's arrogant and just want to do their own thing. He's come out plenty of times and said, he would rather stay in Portland and bring a championship to the city of Portland than, go somewhere else and try to ride somebody's coattail to get where you ultimately want to be. Now that's not saying nothing against him wanting to compete and win a title, but I appreciate players that understand that sometimes when it's comfortable to stand pat and just continue to do what you're doing, and show some love and some loyalty to the community where you're currently in, and the team and everything like that. So I think he's just one of them rare players. He doesn't make excuses. He plays through injuries, and that is all what makes him who he is from that standpoint for Lillard.
I just think at the draft, they're going to be the number one team to look at of what, are they going to trade for help now? And they're going to obviously keep Lillard, or are they just going to go in the young direction and want draft picks and try to rebuild. And if they do, I don't really blame them either way.
Yeah.
You know, if they want to be a contender, then they can. You know, they can with the Pascal Siakam, they can with the Tyler Hero, but they could trade the number 3 pick and get a Tyler Hero. I mean, they could do that easily. They could get maybe even better than him. But I believe that this is a good pick for Portland in the 3-player draft. You want at least one of them, and Portland's going to get one of them. So to me, after that, you're obviously picking on, you know, your talent, your scouts, your draft boards. I'll be a little bit more informative. I think after the top 3, I know there's some 2 twins, but there's supposed to be 2 top 5 players as well. But this top 3 is, I think, pretty defined. It's going to be that they're miles ahead of the 4th and 5th picks when it comes to talent. So I've always looked at this draft as a 3-person draft.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense because after that, you just don't know, you know, what the talent pool, you know, is at that point, and you know, it's not guaranteed no matter what you do. So you just gotta keep plugging away and, you know, make the right decisions that's gonna help, you know, your franchise or cake or whatever, you know, move forward. So
and before I go, because I'm about to go and do some warm up, but I think it's going to be Nuggets in 6 in the Western Conference Finals. The Nuggets' depth, their offense. You know, Bruce Brown has been playing so good for them off the bench. They were hitting shots all game 1, even with the Lakers changing up their lineup, giving Rui Hachimura more minutes, giving Dennis Schroeder more minutes, Austin Reeves, where D'Angelo Russell, as we both know, I think is a very overrated player in the NBA. And I hope that the Lakers make the decision to not either give him a contract or don't pay him as much either. So I still think that the Nuggets are just better. Jokic absolutely dominated game 1. Jamal Murray hit a lot of shots. Aaron Gordon was pretty shaky at the line. But Bruce Brown was a pretty big deal for the Nuggets in game 1. I still give him the edge in this series. And I think Boston will roll Miami. You know, they played 7 games last year. But that's also due to Tyler Hero was playing all 7 games, and he's out for the playoffs. So I think Boston will roll Miami in 5, despite as much as Jimmy Butler wants to think that he can play every single minute and score every single bucket. I think Boston is clearly the better team, and it will show in this series. I think they win in 5.
Yeah. I don't know, man. You say Boston in 5. I think if they win, I think it'll be 6 games for Boston to, you know, win that series. They're a deeper team than, you know, Miami. You know, and they got better coaching. So, well, no, I wouldn't say better coaching. Spoelstra is probably one of the top coaches in the league. So
easily, I think he's the 3rd, 4th best coach. He's in that range.
Yeah, he's in that range. You know what he's done since becoming a head coach over there, and I think a lot of people don't realize what Spoelstra is. You know, the job that he done coaching with that team with, you know, LeBron, D-Wade, Bosh, Shane Battier, Ray Allen. I mean, they you know.
Mike Miller.
Mike Miller. I mean, for him being a new coach, you know, because that's right around the time when he first got that job, and handling all those, you know, veteran players that were still like really good. Even the Mike Millers and Shane Battier, they were specialized type players, but they were very good at what they did when they got on the court. Then you have the big three with Bosh, Wade, and LeBron that you got to deal with those, those personalities and I'm not gonna say attitudes, but you know how players get, and that's just normal. And I think there was some friction for a little bit, or maybe there was some rumors or whatnot about Spoelstra and LeBron James kind of button heads and stuff like that. Pat Riley came out, shut it down immediately, and you never heard anything else. So.
Well, and you've also seen the Jimmy Butler and Spoelstra kind of go at each other as well too at times.
Yeah.
Even this season.
Yeah.
And you don't hear anything about that anymore either.
No.
So there's obviously something that's good, but that Heat culture is a real thing, and there's so many positive things with it, and the results have been impeccable for that franchise. So, yeah, but to me, I still think Boston's a much better team. Because if the Heat had Tyler Hero healthy, then I think this series would be much different. I think it'd be a lot closer. Like obviously, it was a 4-point margin in Game 7 last year. I mean, these teams were really close. But with no Tyler Hero, they have to replace it with Duncan Robinson and Max Strus. And to me, I don't think it's close. And I think that difference is going to be the difference in the series.
Yeah, I do too. It should be a good series. I think this series is, I know Lakers and Denver is more notable as far as star power and whatnot. But I think this series between, the Heat and Boston is probably going to be a more entertaining, more for the eyes as far as watching the game and just good basketball. What we saw last night from Denver and the Lakers was crazy. I mean, that's that third quarter and that fourth quarter, they exchanging baskets, and the Lakers coming back from down almost 30 points. It's good to watch it, but I think Denver it's going to take the Lakers that effort and then some every game to beat Denver, and Denver could just keep bringing it. They can go to their bench. They can keep bringing it. They're bigger. They're probably a little bit stronger on the bench. More experience as far as playoff experience and stuff like that. And over the years, I think the one constant with Denver over the years was that when they came to the playoffs, they were always not at full strength. Murray, tearing his ACL. I think that was in the bubble, wasn't it? Wasn't that in the bubble?
It was the year after.
The year after.
And then you had Michael Porter Jr. Well go down with a lot of with back issues.
Yeah.
And he's been really good for Denver in the playoffs. And, has been a big difference for them.
Yes.
So I think the difference between those two guys and like a Will Barton and Federico Campazzo, like they were last year, playing Jeff Green more minutes last year, playing JaMychal Green. It's just a huge difference in what this team has been compared to where it is at this moment.
Yep, and I think that's just Denver is gonna. I think that series got a chance to be a 6-game series. I would think if Lakers don't win tomorrow, I think that's when they play tomorrow. It could be a long trip back to L.A. and they could be looking at possible 5-game series. I'm not going to say a sweep. I think the Lakers will get a game, maybe even squeeze out 2, but
they're good enough. They're good enough for it.
Yeah,
I would say on their home floor, they're at least good enough for that. But after that, this Denver team is too good. And if Denver played Boston in the NBA Finals, I think I'd pick Boston. But I believe that Denver will get to the NBA Finals 100% in this series.
Yeah, and if Denver gets to the finals, they won't lose.
Derek, I gotta run. I've reached my limit.
Yep.
I gotta get going. But thank you for giving the time for the Anthony Bennett All Star Selection Show. It was wonderful. Season number 7 will be next year, and it will always be special. We might even have a gun show with Ja Morant on it. So, to me, I really enjoy the Anthony Bennett All Stars. It's been really fun. I've even looked back and read the previous years before, and I got to do better with this one. I got to maybe do some edits and do a little better. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun to do it. It's a lot of fun figuring out the list, and that you've allowed it to stay on. It's been really fun to do that. Thank you.
Yep. All right, brother. Go ahead, get out there, stretch a little bit so you don't pull anything, and we'll catch you next time, man. Appreciate you coming on and giving the listeners and the readers your Anthony Bennett 2023 version, man.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Nicholas Lane, Rat Pack Sports Show, NBA Insider, and that was your 2023 Anthony Bennett All Stars, and always a fun time when he comes on to talk NBA. This Anthony Bennett All Stars is a special read, and anybody, if you're into that type of stuff, man, go check it out. It is really good. It's a great write up, and the other ones are on there. So if you want to go back and you want to read the past years and see some of the players that made it for multiple years, hey, just do that, man. It is awesome. And it is up right now on the Rat Pack Sports Show website. I'll be sharing all that stuff out too on social media, for everybody who want to check it out. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It'll all be going up here in a little bit, and this particular podcast segment will be up as soon as we're done with the show here. It could be up, in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Also, it just depends on, if I want to put it up right now. But